Welcome back to So There I Was. I'm your host again, Travis Womack. Today's very special guest is none other than Dave Bartley. We're going to be in for a fun episode. Probably some tears shedded, probably by me. I'm a crier, but we are two professional talkers, so this could probably be a very lengthy episode. Be a good time. But David, thank you so much for being on the show, and anxious to hear your story.
I'm so honored to be here. I've been looking forward to this and our mutual connection. Jody Shaw's Colonel, we know as Colonel, but he
Yeah.
won't let us call him Colonel. But yeah, so happy to be here.
Yeah, well, yeah, had Jody on the show just a while back, and he's like, "You've got to talk to David. You got to talk to David." I was like, all right, fine. So I reached out, and bam, in a matter of a day and a half, and here we are. I love it. The power of LinkedIn and in the true meaning of connections,
Yes.
and so I love it. But let's I know you're not a veteran, and this show's about veterans, but you have a very unique
Mm.
story, and I know you talk to soldiers all over the world from base to base, and heavily involved in those operations and programs. But just kind of a quick little background on your story and what brought you to this point.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the military part. So I'm the youngest of four. I have my three brothers and my three heroes, Jim, John, and Tom. They're 6, 9, and 11 years older than I am. So I always like to think, either I was, a divine accident or my parents got it right. There's
Love it.
not quite sure. So we lost our father, Travis, James Hamilton Bartley. Everybody called him Ham. He was just 40 years old back in 1970. And he died of cancer, but he had also been literally, as I say, gutted by depression. Um, his father, and my paternal grandfather, who I never met, had killed himself when my father was 5. So there was that, and that DNA is going to hit me, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But in terms of the military aspect, when our father died, I was 7. My eldest brother, John, was 18. He really moved in as my dad. And he is my dad. He has been that role. I'm 63, so 50 whatever, 56 years. He's been my
Mhm.
dad. Travis, he enlisted in the army in 1970, and he
Wow.
was a loader on an M60 tank in Germany. So by the grace of God, they didn't send him to Nam. They sent him to
Wow.
Germany. Tried, and on his third try, he got in. So he went to West Point 2 years later and graduated in probably one of the most famous classes of all time, 1976. So you had General Odierno came from that class.
Hmm.
Probably one of the greatest special forces operators of all time, General McChrystal, graduated out of that class, and General Bartley. So
Wow.
he's an armor guy, and he nothing happier than being in the tank. And so at one point, that whole group, you think about those general officers or who they would become, those young officers in 1976. The Army, what the Army really had no real direction. So he went to Fort Bliss. I moved with him, so I lived with him.
Hmm.
And I remember, my brother he's an extraordinary human being. My dad, I'll stick with that. Um, I remember one day he said, "Okay, we got to go to the unit," and we were taking camouflage nets and we were picking out the little pieces of twigs that were
Hmm.
in there. And I'm like, "Why are we doing this?" He looked at me and he just said, "That's what you do." Okay, so he's a very humble guy. He's not like you and me. He's not a talker.
Hmm.
So air he's an armor guy, but he went to Ranger School and he was the honor grad in Ranger School. And so he's airborne, all these different things. So he did 42 years and pinned on 2 stars. And so my brother's never done, and I would never ask him to do. I said, "Hey, can you get me in to speak with soldiers about suicide and things like that?" That's never been part of it. But it's my love for the military and having done this now for quite a while that I feel like every brief that I give, no matter who it is, I feel like I get to honor him. And he's doing great. He's healthy. He's well. He's going back to West Point in like 6 weeks for his 50th reunion.
Oh,
His
wow.
bride, his bride, and he have been married 50 years this year.
Wow.
So he scuba dives all over the world. So he's doing fantastic. So that's the military part. And I love it. I just because I didn't get a chance to serve, but now I feel like I get to serve those who
Yeah,
serve, like you,
absolutely.
like Jody. So that's the military part. Um, the mental health part, the short version, we can go as deep
Yeah.
into it as you want. 15 years ago, I tried to kill myself. And what had happened was there was a combination of two things came together. One was that DNA. So obviously, my grandfather was dealing with some sort of mental illness. My father certainly was. And when I go out and do my briefs, I look at DNA kind of like kindling for a
Hmm.
fire, and you need something to light it. And I think it's almost always trauma.
Hmm.
And you got to do something. And I'm a big one when I do my briefs is I like to reference definitions to put some neutrality in what I'm talking about. Just say, look, it's not me just making this stuff up.
Hmm.
And trauma is defined in the Cambridge Dictionary as severe and lasting emotional shock and pain caused by an extremely upsetting experience. Now, when I work with kids, which I do a lot, I
Right.
say, do you know what? Do you know why I like those last three words? And I've only had like two kids get it. They said, well, Mr. Bartley, that means it can be anything. I said, exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be you're downrange and you
Right.
do your thing or whatever. It can be anything.
It's subjective.
So
So
exactly.
yeah.
So Travis, I had two. So one, I lost my dad and I was 7. And that's back in 1970. And they didn't know jack
But mental
about
health.
depression.
No.
There were no grief support groups
Yeah.
back in 1970. So that impacted. But then the real horror, what set the thing ablaze, which it's truly effed me up, was when I was 12, I was tortured, sodomized, and raped on repeat occasion by an absolutely worthless piece of, what, Boy
Hmm.
Scout leader. And every time this thing would do these things to me, he would say, David, now he would literally, Travis, he was so evil, he would say, David, don't worry. These are initiations and all the boys go through it, but we don't talk about
Wow. That's
it.
awful.
And if you look back at that time period, unfortunately, there were, not to minimize my experience, and the truth of the matter is there were hundreds of thousands
Oh yeah.
of little boys who were feasted on by priests and Boy Scout leaders.
Yeah.
And we were all told the same things, that this was some rite of passage. And it wasn't until, and I don't know if you've read any of her work because she's one of the greatest writers of all times, Maya Angelou, and her book is her autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. And she was raped by her mother's boyfriend who said, if you tell anybody, I'm going to kill your brother. And her brother was her life. Her is agony, the weight of an untold story.
Wow.
And so people say, what happened to you? And I'm like, it's that. And ultimately, I was almost 50 years old. I couldn't do it anymore. I gutted it like I thought it was. And cancer took him, and I was 730-foot tall bridge.
Man, that is a daunting thing. Sorry, the signal got a little cut out there for a second there. That's I kind of lost for words on that. But I definitely need to read that book. That's a talking about what trauma is and how you know feasting on that's the kindling for something that grows. And you start asking yourself a lot of questions. I'm sure you were you
Mm,
said you're 11 or 12 in the Boy Scout
yeah.
thing, and
Yep.
your attempt was when you were 50, and right? Am I off there?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
48 to be exact.
yeah, so
Exactly.
you got 36 years of just kindling, just brewing, and you ask yourself these questions, and for the sake of people listening and just out there in general, is what are those questions that you ask yourself, and then kind of what were the answers, the responses, or even the lies that you told yourself to get to that point?
Yeah. And that's a really great question. And so my work continues to evolve, and quite frankly, I give all credit to, call it God, the universe, the creator, however we do
Mhm.
it, because it's just been fascinating to me how these ideas come where I feel like then I can speak more effectively.
Mhm.
So what I tell people is, and let me check that. What I share with people is I wasn't going to kill myself because of what I was thinking or feeling.
Hmm.
I was going to kill myself because of what I believed.
Okay.
And to me, in this, for me right now, Travis, this is the key. This is the golden key that God has given us. Because if we think about it, science tells us, and we know this, the actions that we see, no matter what it is, everything is driven by belief.
Hmm.
So belief creates the foundation of our thinking. Our thinking produces our thoughts. Our thoughts drive our actions. That's how it is. So when a commander will call me and say, hey man, I got a problem and I don't understand, why my soldiers are doing this. I may say, well, sir, ma'am, do you know what they believe? And like, what are you talking about? Well, you can't affect change for ourselves or anybody else until you address belief.
Hmm.
So my beliefs were and what they ultimately continued they accumulated was that I was worthless, stupid, pitiful, grotesque, ugly, a joke, an embarrassment, a burden, like just go on and
A
on
lot of
and on and
adjectives.
on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's the distinction that I didn't realize, and I think what has kept people stuck. So you would come even now, you and I as brother, come on, you couldn't have been that bad. There's no way that was true. Like your belief and truth are not the same thing.
Right.
But see, people will conflict. They'll say that they are. So truth is the definition is the truth about something is all the facts about it. So facts are kind of boring. Like we blink 30,000 times a day, or our heart goes 100,000 times a day. Identical twins don't have the same fingerprints. I mean, those are facts. Those are
Right.
truths. Do you realize this is so to me? Do you realize what the definition of belief is? This is incredible. So
Do
it
so.
says unwavering confidence and acceptance in something that one knows and feels to be true without needing actual evidence to support such a feeling. Mike. So,
Sounds good.
brother, do you know what that means? You make it up. You make it up.
Yeah.
Okay? And see, and then here's the other part. Just to like this, somebody had to point this out to me. I was almost embarrassed I didn't catch it. Do you realize the word that's hidden in the word belief?
Well, it depends on what language it's coming from, but yeah. Cheers.
Well, lie.
Yeah.
So your brothers who you've lost to suicide,
Hmm.
my attempt, that every single person who has ever attempted or completed suicide, their beliefs were built on lies about themselves, their situation, whatever it was. Not that they were being evil or anything, but see, so, okay, that's the definition of a belief.
Hmm.
The belief, you make it up. You don't need evidence for it. Okay. So the reason for me this is so exciting is to help move someone else or ourselves. We create new beliefs. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do it in the same way that a belief is. All beliefs are created by way of experience. That's how beliefs are created. You
Hmm.
read something, you meet somebody, you go to a 12-step meeting and you stop drinking. You have sex, you get in a car accident, you whatever it is.
Hmm.
So every experience in life, this right here,
Right.
every experience impacts belief in one of three ways. Either creates a brand new one, and you and I have had aha moments like, oh my God, or it adds to your whatever your most powerful set of beliefs are, just adds to it, or and I know we'll get to this, an experience can be so powerful it can blow up literally. It can be ordinance that takes out a belief that's thwarting your development. And so what I teach is the TTPs I teach is these simple ways to create connection, which is this, you and I, since the first moment
Hmm.
that it was already a connection where you feel seen, heard, and valued.
Right.
The TTPs that you create is you go out and just you create connection with everybody you see everywhere. And I know we'll dive into it, but I mean
Yeah.
I do this, brother, every single day,
Yeah.
and it is amazing to me. So just to circle back, so 15 years ago, I thought it was a piece of
Right.
based on my belief, which is how I thought, which is how I felt. okay, you know what? And then I became hopeless, which is ultimately the thing that's going to kill you.
Right.
But now to leverage experience, which could be sitting down with a counselor, could be taking meds. I do all those things too.
Hmm.
So I could go on for days, but I get excited because I really feel like this is doable. It's not as I don't want to sound stupid, which I do a lot.
We're bald men. It's in our DNA.
And we can't help ourselves. I you know
Sorry.
I don't ever want to make another viewpoint or approach wrong. That's not I just
Right.
I'm overzealous about that. But we have spent a, a very long time leveraging prevention.
Right.
And I'll be honest, I don't believe in prevention.
No, I don't either. That's why I have this show.
I believe in yeah, I believe in some, and we can talk about it because it just came to me when I was walking my dogs. This idea, I'm like, oh my god, that's such a great idea.
Yeah, you hit on belief there. I want to circle back to it a little bit before you keep going. And I love your definition on that. And um, you asked what does it mean to me, and I said it depends on what language because um, I'm a spiritual, faithful, Christian man, and people use
Mm.
the John 3:16, and whoever believes in me will not perish. Well, the
Will
word
have
believe there,
everlasting life.
and so that word believe in the Greek, and is a word. I'm gonna get this wrong. My Greek and Aramaic is about a one on the 100 scale. So any of my scholars out there,
Mine's
sorry.
zero, so it's okay.
So but it comes from a word called, I think it's pistos or pisteo, something like that. But it means to be convinced and constantly committed. And if you swap those
Mm.
words out, it changes that entire
Mm.
the gusto of the greatest verse, And so applying it to what you were saying about people that make these beliefs, if you believe and are, convinced and constantly committed to thinking that you are worthless and thinking that you are helpless and insert the long list of adjectives, it can screw with your head a lot,
Oh,
and then you hit the nail on the head. And I talk about this all the time about hopeless and helpless
oh,
and
yeah.
how all of that goes to something. And I was telling, I use it a lot, but there's soldiers, particularly, is we are trained how to close in, close distance, and kill the enemy. We're trained on how to use all these weapons, how to clear malfunctions, how to load them, how to take them apart, how to clean them, how to do all these things, and how to move as a team, as a squad, as a company, how to fire HIMARS and all the things. It's just all this stuff to go, 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 go. And then when we get there and tragedy happens, we're trained on how to use a tourniquet and how to do an IV. And, if you got a really good medic, they can open trach or needle decompression and, all this crazy stuff. And but what is not trained, and it's no fault of any military in the world, is how to deal with the emotion of being helpless because it's not taught.
Mm.
And I'll use two examples for myself, not to tell my stories here, but I had to sit on a rooftop a couple hundred yards away in a fight on September 2nd, 2006, and watch my friends get killed. There's about 10 of us on this roof, and mortars are coming in, and we're hearing hell and chaos on the radio. But we can't leave our position because we're protecting this bridge that is a massive avenue of approach. And if we leave and somebody comes in, we're all done. And killed one day before, killed one guy and decimated our entire mortar platoon. It was a direct hit on our mortars. And the next day, direct hit, killed two of our friends and almost killed my platoon leader. And years later, I'm struggling because like it's the most awful feeling is to watch it and be like, I can't leave my position. I can't go help provide a tourniquet. I can't go help, you know, carry this. I can't do anything other than just watch. And it's awful. And then a year later, we're in Iraq on the surge and a massive accident. This deuce and a half um, hit a hole on a bridge and it flipped over and fell off the bridge 35 feet. There's 18 guys in the back and it killed seven of them. And we get down there to provide help to our brothers. And, it is chaos on the ground. and we're pulling bodies out, and some of them are just are dead on impact, and then everybody's hurt. I mean, there's broken bones, and watching some guys that you're like, I can see your body like changing color. You are bleeding internally. And your
Mm,
kidneys probably ruptured, your liver, I mean, spleen, I mean, all these things, like your body's dying. And like we can't do anything other than just like get them out of here as fast as we can. But we're in the middle of like, I don't know if you've ever been to Baghdad, but there's power lines everywhere and they're not good ones. And it's just a mess. So like we're trying to find a spot to get a helicopter because where we're at, we can't get out to get to the green zone. I mean, it was the worst scenario possible. And we watched 3 or 4 guys literally die on site, and
mm,
two more passed away on the in transit. But it's I live that, and so I deal with it all the time. Of like this is the worst feeling, and and I have extreme um, scenarios, but and I think where people go wrong is you have an extreme scenario, by all accounts, but I think people, oh,
mm.
mine's not as bad as that, but and they would justify and rank like you said at the very beginning
Yep.
there, it's subjective. Trauma is
Yep.
subjective. And
Yep.
my kids, if I tell them we're gonna go buy a Labubu and I don't do it, that can be freaking traumatic for my 7-year-old. She's not in a good mood, you know, and not maybe suicidal trauma, but it's the screaming's high, I promise you. So, but it's I think it induces the end result of feeling helpless. And if you
Yeah.
can kind of embellish on that a little bit more, kind of where that injected for you, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think you bring up the term that comes up is moral injury.
Yeah.
When you are so I had a chance to do so Colonel Matthew Mapes is the commanding officer of Evans Army Community Hospital at Fort Carson.
Okay.
Incredible man. I met him when he worked under Eagle at the 10th Mountain, and incredible guy. And so when he became the CO at Evans, he said, "Hey man, I need you to come out. I want you to do briefs." I'm like, "Okay." So Travis, in all my stuff, I'd never done an MTF before.
Hmm.
I said, because he said, "Well, I didn't want you to come to an MTF." I'm like, "Sir, what is that?" He said, "Well, it's a hospital, but we call it, it's a military treatment facility." I'm like, "Oh, wow." It was phenomenal. So I'd been there maybe a day, and then we did a command lunch. And I remember it was one of the O6s because I said, "Hey, what do you want me to talk about? In addition to suicide and things like that." And they said, "Well, David, I want you to talk about moral injury." And I'm like, "Well, sir, I kind of know what it is, but not 100%." And he said, and Travis, it was exactly what you had talked about. He said, when you have the equipment and the training and the know-how and everything else, and you not do your job. And I'm like, "Oh God, awful." So I get it. And I think helplessness and hopelessness. I think hopelessness is the worst condition that any human being can be in. And one of the things that because as a Christian man as well, I'm not 100% in agreement with First Corinthians in the order of faith, hope, and love. I actually think it's hope. And I'm being kind of silly. Hopefully, they're not going to hold this against me one day. I spoke blasphemous. Like, well, come on, I wasn't being serious. Like, come on. But for me,
We got to pause for
love
lightning. Hold on.
has
All right, go.
North Texas, baby.
Sorry.
I get it. My oldest and most wonderful friend went to North Texas State, so Denton. So,
Trauma.
um, and there you go.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, that love, oftentimes, in my estimation, in my experience, is tied to self worth. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of love. Faith, of course. Okay. Hey, Mount Everest, I need you to just slide a little bit to the right. Could you please do that? And yeah, it's just a mustard seed, but that's all I need. That's pretty intimidating. But hope takes a back seat. And my belief is that as long as we have just the smallest amount of hope, we can survive. But in the absence of it, like Dostoevsky said, to live without hope is to cease to live. It's you're done.
Yeah.
And I always say, if you line up 100,000 of me, of your brother, who, and what was his name that he took his own
Josh
life?
Myers.
Josh. um, Josh, me, and others, if you said, okay, you get one word to describe, in that moment, however we do it, we'd all say the same thing. We'd say we're hopeless. We believe that whatever our situation is never going to get better. So the converse of hopelessness, of course, is hope. Hope defined, I'm going to give you the definition and the explanation. The definition is the feeling that what is wanted can be had. So that's not optimism. That's not like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's none of that.
Right.
That's surety. That's okay. That's all right, pretty solid. So my my brother Tom, who started calling me Woody a million years ago, has two beautiful children, Dustin and Brookie. So Brookie, she called me, this was like 3 months ago, and said, "Oh my God, Uncle Woody, I got this great quote about hope." I'm like, "Okay, wow, who's it from?" She said, "Well, it's a guy named Matthew on Twitter and he likes cats." I'm like, "Okay."
It's a great start.
I mean, Travis, that's like the bio. I'm like, okay, my expectations couldn't be any lower. Check
Yeah.
this out. This is badass.
Yeah.
He says this. People tend to think of hope as this delicate, temporary thing made up of whispers and spider webs. It's not. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, the grit of cobblestones in her hair, and she just spit out a tooth as she rises for another go.
That's pretty good.
That that I said, so when I'm briefing soldiers, I'm like, that's in a green suit right there. That's exactly what that is. There will never be a soul on the planet that will take their life there.
Hmm.
And so for me, my TTPs are based on really what my dad taught me is that connection, which is this, so it's the Brene Brown quote, which should be in the dictionary. She says, "I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and they derive strength and sustenance from the relationship."
That's great.
So out of that, there's only one thing that comes out of that. That's hope. So what I say, connection creates hope. It does. I mean, you
Hmm.
can't, this is hope for me.
Yeah.
I'm with a brand new brother that I will be with for the rest of my life. We're not going, I will be connected with you the rest of my life from another brother who came
Hmm.
from another brother. Okay, that's amazing. You feel hope, like, yeah, man, I got it. And I love the hope standing up with depression, anxiety, like, is that all you got?
Yeah.
Please. Just, and so the TTPs, to circle back, what if we could give that to everybody? It just, and the TTPs I teach, it's all about, because we don't know that there are four things that I ask the Army to do. So one, prevention doesn't work. Okay. Let that go. Two, we don't know who's suffering. We don't. Just, you know what? There are no signs. Just get rid of that.
Hmm.
You know, and just, we're never getting to zero. Just let that go. Okay. Just, and they said, "Well, are you throwing up your hands?" No. You know what those things do that allow me to better understand what did what did Sun Tzu say? You don't fight your enemy, you understand your enemy. And the other thing in regards to prevention is, what's the first sentence? You read the book, brother. The first sentence in the book says all warfare is based on deception. We have done the same thing in attacking suicide for, I don't know, 165 years. I'm not saying it's bad. So what I ask people to do is, so you're in a boat. What's the thing that you put on as a safety check, or if water starts to get, kind of crazy? What do you don? What
Live
is it?
vest. Yeah.
Or life preserver?
Preserver. Yeah. Ring. Something. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what they don't call it? An anti-drowning jacket.
Yeah. That's,
They don't.
that's
They
great.
don't. And
I'm
you know what?
stealing that.
So you please do.
Yeah.
It came from God. So when you get in with your kids and you're finally going to the boo-boo and they're like, "Dad, thank God," you're not strapping them in with anti-crash belts. They're safety belts. You don't buy death insurance, you buy life insurance. If you're working the 12 steps, you're not living addiction free, you're living a sober life. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, wait a second. So I don't talk about suicide prevention, I talk about life preservation.
That's great.
Prevention, stop. Prevention stops a problem. Preservation protects a life. Those are two entirely different things. It's time for us to change. That's what I'm asking us to do. Like, come on. So don't get
That's a great line in that life, but I'm totally jacking that by the way.
take that, brother.
So
Just
no,
use it.
that is
They do
profound.
not call it
It's a viewpoint, you know. I
exactly.
mean, not to be political because people don't like that, but Department of Defense versus Department of War, it's a complete different approach.
You're
I
right.
mean,
You're
it's a
right.
mentality of like, no, this is our job, and being an airborne infantryman for years and all this stuff. Like, I'm not I'm not tasked with the defense. I'm tasked with close with and destroy the enemy. That is, I'm going forward, and I think that's just to use that paradox, but it's a
It's
complete
beautiful.
change. You hit something a while ago that I'd like to spend some time on, and I think it's huge. And being a commander, I was enlisted before for 9.5 years, and I was an officer for 10 and a half, and so I've been on both sides of seeing how people communicate a little bit, and when I was a commander, I did this little class for pre-command course thing. It was like 3 weeks long, and one of the things I talked about was like, look, keep an eye out for the signs. And you see a soldier that's selling their car, or
Right, right.
or they're they're selling their computer. I mean, it's always about selling things, and there's probably some truth to that. But at that point, they probably already made their mind up a little bit. But they kept hitting on the signs, and I struggle with that a lot. And, I had a kid come to my office. Gosh, it was 2 or 3 weeks into command. I'm still trying to figure out where my desk is at, and Fort Myers is a really old base, and it
Yeah,
was,
yes, it is.
and so it was, I didn't know it was, I mean, I was an S4 for Jody Schaus one day, and I went on Thanksgiving break. I did inventories. I took command. Like it was like literally in a 3 week span. My life was like, whoa, and quick. And I didn't have 6 months to do anything and figure it out. But this kid came to the office and it was really funny because it's like 5:05 in the afternoon. And if you've ever been in the old guard, that's a late day at
Yep.
work. They don't work that late. We go home because our days start way earlier with the cemetery. And I heard somebody in the hallway and I looked and I see this kid and he's just kind of like, what do I do? I was like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I was looking for the chaplain. I'm like, one, you're on the wrong floor. And this building's an L, and you're on the wrong floor on the wrong part of the L. Like, and our chaplain was awesome, and everybody knew where he was. And I was like, well, he's gone. I was like, you okay? He's like, oh yeah, yeah. I was like, no, I don't believe you. Come on,
Mm.
and he came to my office, and I had to text my wife at the time, said, hey, I got a kid in my office. This is gonna be a little while, and we proceeded to talk for like 2.5 hours.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
and just kind of like getting through like, look, dude, you're an E2. I'm a captain. I get it. There's a barrier here. I'm your boss and I have reporting responsibilities. I was like, put all that aside. I'm a freaking human. And I
Mm.
see another human who is something is wrong. And, and it's, talking about the signs, that's the sign right there that reads, and I want to hit on these two things, if you'll indulge me, is what are the signs, and how they're wrong. But people always say, "Oh man, if you need help, just reach out. Just give me a call." And like nobody who's making that decision that I've ever noticed makes a phone call, an hour before they make that decision, or like, "Hey, I'm sitting here. I'm going to call you because I am in turmoil." I've heard lots of stories where it's the other way around, where someone, "Hey man, I just feel like I just need to give you a call. Are you okay? I'm actually sitting here with a gun." It's a complete different
Yep.
intervention by accident. And for that kid walking down the hallway, that was him crying out for help. That's as
Yep.
far as he could get, and
Yep.
luckily I've been around it and experienced enough of suicide at that point in my life and career that I was like, he needs help. I could just see it. And but I struggle with people saying, oh, just look for the signs, and if you need help. So if you kind of indulge on that for a little bit, I'd
Oh,
appreciate it.
man. Yeah. Tell me read something too. So this is from the medical report. Okay. The brother says suicidal tendency may continue to exist, carefully masked and concealed, long after other symptoms seem to have disappeared. The patient ceases to express these suicidal tendencies because they believe that if they do, they will be carefully watched and prevented from ending their life. You know what this report when this report was dated?
You got me.
1865.
Okay.
And we continue to do the same thing.
Same
We
thing.
have not changed. Dude, that was 160 years ago.
Confucius
And
says.
and it basically said, look, they're not going to show you the signs because they don't want to be talked out of. But we haven't changed. So,
Right.
and you brought up a really so you can have the anti no anti they don't call it an anti-drowning jacket. And I'm
Yeah.
stealing the whole. I've never heard a story, and this is the paradigm I live in, about somebody in that horrific place reaching out in that last moment.
I mean, yeah.
And so what I say is, you know, just let go of the signs. Just let go, but let's be the sign.
Hmm.
And there's a great story. You probably heard of Kevin Hines.
Hmm.
So I had a chance to meet him quite a few years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, and he tells his story on the day he was going to kill himself. It was 25 years ago. So he writes a suicide note, and at the end of it, he says, "Look, if anybody shows me any kind of caring, I won't do it." That's
Right.
a simple way to say it. So he has to take two buses to get to the Golden Gate Bridge, and he's on the bus and he's just crying. No one says anything. Second bus, same thing. Paces on the bridge for 40 minutes, and the woman comes up to him finally and says, "Would you take my picture?" He takes picture, jumps off the bridge, and by the grace of God and a sea lion, saved his life. And I'm like, Kevin was looking for one sign.
Hmm.
So what I'm saying is, show this. We don't know. Let's just accept the fact we do not know who is suffering. And that message is getting out a little bit, in different ways.
Hmm.
The death of Robin Williams did a lot
Yeah.
for that movement.
Yeah.
There are
Absolutely.
people who have created the sweatshirts now that has on the back,
I
"Hey,
have one of
person
those.
behind me." Yeah, it's amazing. So
Hmm.
that it's not becoming. And then I have stories, and the stories are, I'm involved with them, and they don't want me to be the hero, but it's incredible to me,
Yeah.
Travis, how many times, and it's one of the TTPs that I teach is expression.
Hmm.
Just we have an unlimited number of opportunities every single day to be the sign for somebody.
Yeah.
And I am surprised after surprise after surprise after surprise at what a small gesture, what our Creator is asking us to participate in, makes a difference. And one of the quote I use a lot. So Drew Ramsey, he's a wild man on Instagram. He's a psychiatrist, really big into brain gut health. He's
Yeah.
just an amazing man. He's written a bunch of books. And here's his quote, and it sums up what you and I are talking about. He says, "Someone you see today is thinking about killing themselves.
Hmm.
Your smile, your question,
Hmm.
your love could save them. Trust me, they told me it did."
Wow. That's
It's just like, okay, that's it.
yeah.
Now, we're not going to, 99% of the time, we're not going to know what the impact, because this circles all the way back to what I'd said before. Every experience that we encounter in the 24 hours of each of our days is going to impact belief. Either create a new one, add to existing, or take apart an old one. It is.
Hmm.
So our job, as I see it, as men of God, is to go out and to be the hands and the ears and the eyes and the feet and everything else of the Creator, and make connection. And I teach three things. One, be great with people's names. Like, remember people's names. Like,
It's a
and
great.
then just man. And I tell you what, Travis, that thing
Hmm.
is so. So I got a chance to brief the G1 Lieutenant General Eifler in December, and I'd never been to the Pentagon. I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my God, this is amazing. And I'm like you, I'm like, hey, how you doing? And so I know rank, I'm seeing there's 35,000 people. Like I don't
Hmm.
have to tell you.
People don't
So
realize
I
that.
they assigned me with this wonderful woman named Samantha. So she's my handler, mostly so I don't make a fool out of myself. And so I'm going to brief General Eifler, and I'm going to have a meeting with DPRR, Director of Prevention, Readiness, and Resilience.
Hmm.
D guys and Renee Johnson and incredible people. So I have time, and so I'm just walking around. I'm saying hi to everybody. Like, oh my god, like colonels are like E1s here.
It's so true. Trying to be a
So
captain.
yeah, well, exactly, yeah, and then and so I mean, people are coming by and say, "Hi, ma'am. Hi, sir. Hey, Admiral. Hey, I'm just like that's just who I am." So, end of the day, Samantha says, "Sir, can I say something to you?" I said, "Oh, Samantha, of course, absolutely." She says, "Sir, I've worked here for 9 years. I've never seen that many people smile before." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Damn,
Yeah.
I
That's a
didn't even know
lonely
their name."
building. It's a
Well, yeah, no,
lonely
I get
building.
it. I mean, no, brother, the more, yeah, I mean, I get it. But so, like, you think these are educated? I mean, these people, and like, all I did was say hello.
Yeah.
That was it. So now I don't know of it. I mean, have you read Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point?
Yes. Between
Yeah.
Tipping Point and my favorite book he has is oh my gosh. People.
Well, you got Outliers, David and Goliath.
No,
Um,
it's about the cop that pulled the girl. Um,
I don't
holy
know
cow,
that.
how did I not? It's like my that and sorry, I gotta look it up now
David,
because
David and Goliath. Well, the Tipping Point and then I read David and Goliath was amazing. That was really cool.
talking to
Now you
strangers.
got
Sorry,
my.
talking to strangers. Duh. It's the whole point.
Uh,
That
no, I
book
can.
is
Okay.
and I encourage everybody. Sorry not to derail this. Um, the audio book of Talking to Strangers is the best book out there, hands down.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna listen to it. No, because
Because
I tell you what, he may be the best storyteller I've ever
yeah,
heard.
but he tells in that what I love that he did, and because authors do this, and I'm an author as well, is we would quote something and we put we do the quotes and we do the reference and we move on. And then when you do an audio book, it's just like in President Obama said this, and they read the quote. What he did in the audio book is actually play the actual audio of every time he references anything.
Oh
And
wow.
so
Okay.
there's a whole thing of the CIA guy that talked about the guy who invented waterboarding. As weird as that sounds, but there's an interview with that guy, and it's the actual like hearing,
Ooh.
and so it's everything about it is the actual
No.
audio, the actual footage, whatever it is. So you're hearing it, and you're there, and it's. So I read the book, then I listened to the audio. I'm like, this is a whole different thing. But yes, sorry, I didn't derail that, but it's
No. Well, no.
phenomenal.
But I think I mean it just to a certain degree. Well, no, not. I mean, one of the things in that I took away from the tipping point because I'd read it, but then I listened to it, and then I listened to he wrote a new one, The Revenge of the Tipping Point.
Hmm.
So I listened to that. I didn't like that as much, because he can get into a data nerd kind of
Yeah,
thing. But but so when I'm working with a unit, let's say I'm working with a platoon, I say, look, you don't need your whole platoon to buy into this whole connection theory thing. You don't. So you got 40 people, let's just say an average platoon size, you only need 12. So, because he talks about the connectors, the mavens, and I'm trying to
hmm
think what was the other one. So,
Oh, it's been a while. I have to refresh on that one.
yeah.
Sorry.
So, but then that thing will spread. So, I believe this whole connection thing is going to spread. The whole name thing is going to it's going to spread. Um, the expression. So my dad lives in Illinois. I live here in California. Every day I grab my phone because there's going to be a text from him,
Hmm.
and it's always in four parts. First part is he tells me what he's doing that day. Second part is it's advice, encouragement, support for me. Third is a motivational quote, and fourth is a sentiment. His is always the same, Travis. It's love you. And say
Good.
in the last two years, you know how many days he's missed?
Wow,
Zero.
that's awesome.
And I just say, it takes him probably 30 seconds. I'm like, pick one person out of your life. I call it the general's way. Do that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I live for these every day. It, it's so simple. Um, and because I question myself all the time because I don't have a degree. I'm just 63 doing my thing. But then it was listening to the tipping point in which he talks about when they had William Bratton come in the 80s to the New York subway and like, hey man, this thing's a mess.
Hmm.
we got felonies and crime and all kinds of stuff. And so the short version of the story was he didn't attack the felonies first. What he did was is he attacked the fare beaters. So they were having 170,000 people a day not pay to ride the subways.
Right.
And so they were, because he's part of the broken window theory. You know,
Hmm.
if you have a depleted house, and
Right.
so he would get 7 to 10 plainclothesmen police officers. They'd be at a particular station. They'd arrest these fare beaters. Then they daisy chained them together. So
Hmm.
the people riding the subways are like, "What the?"
Yeah.
And then they did a background check and found out like 20 to 25% had outstanding warrants. So handling the small things, the
Yeah.
felony rate
Went
came
down.
down.
Yeah.
So my belief is if we handle these aspects of connection that are so incredibly simple, whether you're on post or not, in uniform or not, there's going to be an effect.
Hmm.
And we're going to then you add to the tipping point part. If
Hmm.
we get 30% of a platoon doing this, the other guys and gals, they're going to start doing it too.
Yeah. I
So
think
that's my two.
that's a great thing. The little things I think people forget. We always want to solve the problem by making the cake. It's like, no, well, let's figure out what kind of icing we want, because if you don't have good icing, the cake is going to suck no matter what, you know. And I mean, it's the truth. And but people always want to focus on this big. If we don't make big grandioso changes, if we don't like, let's change how we recruit people, or let's change how we discharge people, or and there's arguments those programs are right and wrong on their own right. But if we don't change what we're doing, like it's like, no, it's a simple thing of just saying hi. It's not that difficult. And I have a great memory in college, and if this girl ever hears this episode, she'll probably remember this. So I randomly, when I was in this very large Christian group on University of North Texas, no longer North Texas State, but and somehow found out that it was her birthday, and it was the same day as my sister's birthday. And just through just weird connection, like, oh, we're going to so and so's birthday party. I'm like, oh, cool, y'all have fun. Fast forward a whole year later, I ran into her in the lobby on that same day, on my
Mm,
sister's birthday, going into one of our church events. I was like, hey, happy birthday. And she's like, how the heck do you remember my birthday? I'm like, I just, same day as my sister's, just saw you, have a good day, and walked off. And didn't think anything of it. And she talked to me like 2 weeks later, and it's kind of what you were saying a while ago about that letter that somebody wrote. Someone shows that they care, you know.
exactly.
But she wasn't suicidal, but she was literally going down that route,
Yep.
and of like, does anybody really care? Is this all just for show? And she came back to me. She's like, you know what? You're the only person that like remembered. So everybody knew it that one year because it was her 21st. It was a big deal, but no one remembered her 22nd. And so you just said happened to say it, and I'm like, I just remember it because it was my sister's, and you're actually kind of cute. Anyways, but sorry, my wife's not hear this and be like, what in the world are you doing? It's 25 years ago, but it's those little things. Um, you
You're right.
you hit on though, kind of shifted a little bit on this, but I was listening to your one of your TED Talks, and you talk about the difference between mental health, healthness versus mental wellness.
Mm,
And I'd like to kind of clarify that,
mhm.
and not a full TED Talk, but we can. And just, but
No,
what are the differences? That's a unique term I've never heard before.
no, it's definitely a God term. I hadn't either. It came to me one day. I think I have long struggled with self-worth and just have hated myself for most all of my life. And one of the things that we hadn't shared here, and I don't do it to shine light. Well, whatever. Um, so I've been married twice and I hit the jackpot both times. My first wife and I are still great friends. Amazing, amazing person, Deanna, and I have an amazing bride now. And so Dee and I ran this huge end of life animal sanctuary. I
Hmm.
mean, this place was unbelievable, and all thanks to Dee. And we would only take animals in either seniors, very, very old, very, very sick, or dying. So we didn't know options.
Hmm.
And so we had as many as 100 at any one time. We had 25 horses, 23 dogs. All the
Wow.
dogs lived in the house, believe it or not. We had 9 potbelly pigs, and the level of care was off the chart. I mean, I mean, I know now that, again, because of Deanna, we were the finest sanctuary in the world. And in June 2nd, 2010, we were the cover story in USA Today.
Wow.
So you'd think, and then 14 months later, I tried to kill myself. You're like, what? Wait, that's like Nirvana. You're doing an animal
Yeah.
sanctuary, and it's like, what? But remember that there's no greater agony than bearing the weight of an untold story. So the hellness component was, and not nearly, I mean, pretty, I'll share in a second. I mean, because of amazing treatments and other things, and in such a different place. But hellness for me is self-hatred. You just like can't give yourself a break. I can't give myself a break. I mean, it is taken my entire life, and and I've done easily 500 plus hours of individual therapy, 500 plus hours of group therapy. I mean, I've done all of which has been amazingly beneficial. I mean, I've done 45 sessions of electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy.
Wow.
That has just been like, it's been shocking.
Hmm.
It's
Indeed.
been incredible. Yeah. So the hellness part for me, and that's why I love the word, it's just been, I mean, like, God, what is it like? For the longest time, it was a rhetorical question, really, maybe a direct question to God, like, what's it like to have a day where you don't hate yourself? What's that like? What's that like to give yourself some grace, like some
Hmm.
mercy, some understanding, some peace? Like, what's that like? And thanks to all of this, thanks to amazing relationships, um, I have that. And my bride now is 20 years younger than I am, because I got game. We're just gonna say that. And
Wait.
I always tell people, I always tell people, Travis, that's my only joke that you're getting in the entire brief. So now I have three kids. So by marriage, so I'm the bonus dad. I hate the word step. I'm the
Yeah.
bonus dad. I have a 15-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 20-year-old son, and they got a great dad, awesome dude. I love this guy. Their bonus mom is like one of the best people I've ever met in my life. So the
That's awesome.
co-parenting works really, really great. My youngest daughter and I worked together all day yesterday, which was awesome. So I have now, I'm still working on my relationship with myself.
Hmm.
Um, but it's even more than mental wellness. It would be this whole thought of peace, like peace of mind. Like, and most of the stories that I tell in my briefs, I use animal stories
Hmm.
to talk about this because it's, not to soften it, but
Well,
it's
there's
more the
compassion.
parable.
There's compassion
Yeah,
for
well,
animals. Yeah.
as you and I know, the parable format tends to work pretty good for one guy.
Right.
So maybe it would work well for her,
It's a good
kind of.
model. There's a hill on a mountaintop or something like that. So,
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Or just in a boat, like, hey,
yeah.
let's calm down, waves.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Simmer down now.
anyway, yeah, exactly. Tim, dude, you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've had moments, especially in the last year, where I really did give myself some grace. Like these little snippets of time. Like it'd be like the look in the mirror, more the rear view mirror, and just like, good job,
Mhm.
good work. I had one the other day. I was there. I drove up to get some gas, and I could tell the woman in front. I just had this sense she was frustrated, and I said, "Ma'am, excuse me. It just seems like you're a little confused." And she said, "Well, yeah, I'm trying to I can't get this card to work." And I said, "Okay, well, may I help?" So, I was able to do blah blah blah, and she's like, "Oh, thank you so much. You're a knight in shining armor." I'm like, "Oh man, it's an honor." And so we talked. Her name was Betty. She and her beloved Paul had been married for 63 years. I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm 63." So it's just I mean, so simple. I didn't know if I would be able to do anything, but for me to give myself like, hey man, you know what? You could have just ignored it, And she tried to leave two different times. No, I'm just gonna go. I said, no, like, let's try this. How about we do this?
Mhm.
Which is typically that's not my usually who I am, but I'm like, good job, you
Yeah.
know. I'm like, man, and I'll tell you what, brother, that the contrast between the two, I mean, it's that's really kind of heaven and hell,
Yeah.
as I would imagine it.
Yeah, I think, giving yourself grace is for you or for anybody is I don't know, my wife, she makes fun of me all the time for this because she's like, you really like do not take yourself seriously. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, and
So
it,
bless your heart.
and well, it's taken a lot to get to that point, and I think some things can fast forward. The closer you get to death, the quicker it can kind of
Hmm.
elevate that process, and um, I try not to share a whole lot about myself here on, but so my dad died when I was 5 months old in
Oh my
a
God.
in a tragic car wreck, and so it was my mom, my brother, and I, and so she remarried, and it's the only guy I call dad as well. I don't use the word step because it's the only dad I have a memory of, and but and so I struggled with that for a long time because my dad went to UNT and played football and athlete and all this stuff, and my stepdad, whatever, does not. So we had a rough junior high, and we have a great relationship. He comes to my house all the time uninvited and parks in my driveway, and we live like 2 miles apart, but and I keep all of his gear here for racing and stuff. But anyways, it's there was a lot of questions throughout life, in frustration and personally, internally, and then also spiritually. We all want to ask the question why. It's the probably the most asked question in anybody that's doing any kind of self-reflecting at all in their life. The
Right.
question that comes up is why. And so just working through that, and I had a great friend that saw it, and he's like, dude, are you okay? Like, not suicidal, but like he could tell that I was struggling and like this was eating
Mm.
me alive, and like my potential as a person, as I didn't have never had a girlfriend really during that period of time. And my personality was just kind of like, he's like, when you're around me, when we hang out, you're one person, but when you're elsewhere and I see you, like you're not. And like, there's a break,
Mm.
and I'm glad
Mm.
you're open with me, but you need to be free with everybody. And so it kind of sparked this ability to like, you know what? I don't care if people make fun of my speech. I know I talk fast. My granddad's an auctioneer. It's in my blood, you know. So it's, and I always, and I've learned to like use that as my opening line. Jody's a great example. When I did my first counseling with him, we talked about my job responsibilities and yada yada yada, of course. And I said, sir, just let you know, I'm aware that I talk fast. I'm from West Texas. It said the uniqueness about West Texas is we remove all commas and all spaces and make one very long word. And I was like, so if you say what, it doesn't hurt my feelings. So please don't just nod your head if I'm giving you a brief and you're like, the crap's he talking about? So, because I'll do that from time to time and I'll get maybe nervous or whatever and just, and he's like, you're doing it again. We can come with a gang sign or whatever we need. It's like say it again, you know. But I became comfortable in my own flaw, I guess. And and so
Holy
it's
cow!
a
Wait, I got that's wait that dude. That's comfortable. Wait, I gotta write that down.
and
Okay.
and and to realize that like me talking fast is something I can semi control and be aware of, but also losing my hair, I didn't really care. I shaved it all off in Iraq and haven't had a haircut in 22 years. And it's actually very cheap, just so you know, for those that don't
Well,
bald.
yeah.
It's great, but not taking ourselves too seriously, I think is a struggle for anybody. They
Mm.
they think, oh, my clothes this, or my car that, or my job this, or my house that, or my blinds this, and you're married, been married twice. I've been married twice, and and the joke, the common joke or theme of if you have company, you have to go clean your baseboards, right? It's like no one's coming over here judging my house by my baseboards. If they are,
Yeah, I hope.
we probably shouldn't be friends, you know?
No, I'm looking now. I'm looking at mine.
Yeah. So, but like, like, and if you ever had cleaners before, like there's like this joke about like you have to clean your house before the cleaners come.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm
Yeah,
like, why
yeah.
am I vacuuming? We're paying this person to come tomorrow to vacuum. This is stupid. And so we put this pressure on ourselves to not allow ourselves to be free in our own life. and um, different story here, but I carry this in my wallet. So this is my wallet. I made these business cards, and this is what I give these people all the time,
Oh, I love that.
you know.
That
And
yeah,
so
that you know what? I love that.
for those who can't see this, it says the card says, "I hope you win the battle you don't tell anyone about." And I keep five of them
Mm.
in my wallet at all times, and along with my other
Hey,
business
you know
cards.
what, brother?
But
I think I'm gonna steal that idea too.
it's they're cheap. 100 business cards is like $10, and if I don't have the time to sit and talk with somebody, and this has happened about a month ago. My wife and I were at Starbucks, and I ran in to get a drink, and she I was getting my drink, and this girl walked in. She's probably in her 40s ish, and she's sitting down at the laptop, and her hands were literally just shaking while she's typing. I could tell like she was doing everything she could to hold it together, whatever it was.
Mm.
And I'm like, you came to Starbucks, and my initial thought was like, what is she coming to start? Whatever she's doing, if it's homework and you're that stressed, this is the wrong environment, And then I kind
Mm.
of watched her a little bit longer, and like she was like, kind of wiping up the pre-tier,
Hmm.
and I had to go, but 'cause I had my kid in my car, and I was like, I gotta leave, and I gave her a card and just said, I just want to give this to you, and walked out, and I get in my car, and she came running out of the parking lot.
No.
And she's like flagging us down. She's like, she's like, how did you know? I was like, no, what? She's like, I just lost my job.
Oh my
And
God.
like if I can't pay my rent the next week, like I'm gonna get evicted. I'm not asking for money, but like, how did you know? I was like, I just I've seen people in despair, and I said, oh, it's all I can do right now, and so well, can y'all pray for me? I'm like, sure. So we, there in my car, held her hand and prayed for her, and it's like it's the least I can do at the moment. And then she went back inside,
Right.
and I have no idea, you know. But for her, and this is the simplest thing of giving her a piece of paper that's 2 by 4 inches is, you know, maybe have prevented something, and just I think that acknowledgement that, hey, you're a human and I'm a human and I've hurt before. I've seen this kind of hurt. And so acknowledge it. That's all it takes. It's the
No,
simplest thing.
and I'd say you preserve something. You
Do
preserved. I would say you helped to preserve her life.
Yeah. I don't know if she was there, but I will never know, and it leads me
No.
to the question, you talk about connection being the foundation of any mental health wellness. I totally agree with you on that. Where do you think people go wrong with that the most though?
Well, I think, brother, they don't understand what connection is.
Hmm.
And I think not to think, check that, believe. That's why, of course, Brene Brown, anything she says is brilliant. That's
It's
why I
pretty good.
love that definition, in which she just
Yeah.
says, okay, connection is the experience where you feel seen, heard, and valued. Where you can give and receive without judgment, and you derive strength and sustenance from the relationship. I think, because connections become, and I'm happy about it, connections become a buzzword,
Hmm.
but do you know what it means? So I think people might look, I don't know how to exactly say it. They may look too far deep into it, like, well, I don't have time to be connected. But
They
your
lie.
placement, your placement of that card to that soul and you love to use the word despair, because despair, the definition of despair is basically hopelessness.
Hmm.
Your placement of that card, oh, you said, just, I thought you might need this. You made that was connection.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, what she came charging out, she felt seen, heard, and valued
Right.
right there, and then it led to a prayer and the other thing. So I think that people, where they get it wrong is they think, oh yeah, I don't have time. I don't have time for a long conversation. I don't have time for this. Do you have time to 30 seconds to send a text to somebody once a day?
Right.
That's connection. So and the other part is, I think if people realize that what comes out of connection every single time, certainly in the case, brother, that you just shared, you gave that soul hope. That is it, that, and Elie Wiesel, the Auschwitz survivor, says just as despair can only come one person to another, hope can only come by way of one person to another. And
Right.
see, that's the distinguishing aspect
It's a good
from
quote.
faith and love. Hope is different. Hope requires it's an active engagement. You know, again, she's spitting out teeth, standing there like, is that all you got?
Yeah.
So I think if people realize the simplicity of it, it's so. I love to tell this story. So I love to go to the grocery store. It is amazing how many. I mean,
That's
that is
so,
like, oh, I love it.
yeah.
So young man is, he's rung me up and now he's putting my groceries in a bag and so the homework assignment that I give to people about names, I say, okay, next time you go to a convenience store or a grocery store, the soul that is taking care of you, and I call people souls because
People.
in a secular environment
Yeah.
to remind us like there's more than what we see.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to push Buddhism or Judaism or Christianity on you or anything. I'm just saying there's more than what we see.
Hmm.
So I say, when you go up to that person, they know their name. And I said, do you know who the name tag is for? Us.
Yeah.
Amazing how many people like that. They think it's a trick question. I mean, I look at blank faces. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, people. So I'm like, use it. So this young man didn't have a name tag. I said, hey, brother, may I ask? Thanks for helping me today. May I ask what your name is? And he froze
I
like
forgot.
I've tased him. And he's like, David. I'm like, David, thank you so much for helping me today. I really appreciate it. And then he's working for a little bit longer. And he goes like, and he's like, hey, why'd you ask my name? Like he is pissed or
Yeah.
afraid or something. I mean, he's so, and I'm like,
Yes, our
David,
manager.
David,
Yeah.
David, you're helping me. I can't, I'm going to go home as a rock star because I got, different things that my family's asked me to get. I can't do any of this without you. You're not a robot. I'd like to know who you are so I could thank you personally. And he's still pointing at me and like his head is going to explode at
Hmm.
this point. And then he says, I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
That's good.
I mean, now I don't know if David had a gun at home and was thinking about killing himself. I don't know. That's not my responsibility. It's that I don't have any. My job as a child of God, as a member of the the human family,
Hmm.
I just I want to I want to walk my talk.
Hmm.
It's just like, hey, and the beautiful thing, and I think, brother, you would agree with me on this. It is how it helps me. The mutuality of this is so powerful. I don't know of another situation. I'm sure there are of a win-win-win. So in other words, let's say there's two people. There's two soldiers. Let's say I got the first sergeant, and let's say I got three, and I'm gonna make connection with both. And let's say it ends up first sergeant, his life is fantastic. Okay, well the connection's still going to be of value. And if I go to the O3, if I go to the captain, and behind this, I've been out of West Point for 4 or 5 years, and I'm thinking, why the hell am I doing this and everything else? And well, now I've helped him too. But you know who the greatest benefactor is? Me,
Hmm.
because I'm the common denominator. Like, so it's not wasted on anything. And if it becomes, just a standard SOP, like, I don't know.
Yeah. My wife and I had this talk all the time about this podcast and others. You know, I do it for hope in hopes that someone listens, or gets shared somewhere down the line and prevent someone from making that decision, or they laugh, and that's it. That's the end state, But we talk all the time, and I was like, I think it's more for me. It's just like this is my therapy,
Oh,
and I love it, and it's a it's I've met some great people, and and have people to chat with, or and I was part of a project that's right here behind my shoulder, and and a lot of that project came to fruition and worked because one, I don't have any more shame left in me, I don't think, of like I
bless your heart.
will call somebody that I don't know. I will send a message on LinkedIn to somebody I don't know. And like, what's the worst they're gonna say? No, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
at the end, and I'm still tall, bald, and handsome when it's all said and done. Okay, definitely tall and bald, but I don't know what the handsome part. We'll leave that up to my wife. But it doesn't hurt me, and it's taken years and years and years to get to the point of like someone else's opinion doesn't I don't really care. I've got 5 kids running around the house and they're healthy and happy, and my daughter wants to get baptized, and I'm like, cool,
Mm.
don't take my phone call, don't be a guest on the show. It's like I'm still gonna take care of them, and that's what I care about, and I think people get lost in that. And the
Yep.
bigger picture is obviously, the closer you are to the edge, not pun intended, but pun intended, is, you know, the big picture becomes real, real small, you know, for
Oh
the
man.
the few
It's
people that have attempted and not, as the common denominator I've heard is you forget that you have a spouse, you forget about your kids, you forget like all these things, and it gets towards the only thing that matters is that one lie you're telling yourself, and you forget all those things. And um with that, and you've done a lot of work with the military, obviously with your brother, growing up in it, or your dad, and um and you've spoken at all these bases and military facilities, and I'm sure chaplain programs. um
oh man, yeah. Oh,
but
I love chapters.
you know
Woo, baby.
so all of those things combined, because they're all, the MTFs are coming from a clinical standpoint, and obviously the chaplains are coming
Right.
from a religious standpoint, and doing the suicide prevention seminars, and as a commander I had to do all those too. But
Yeah.
there's different angles, but with them or any other organization, you know where do you think people are going wrong? You mentioned, we get rid of this and
Yeah.
that, these 4 things, and uh, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what would be maybe we can solve the world's problems today, but but
Yeah.
where are we missing?
Well, I think thank you. Brother, I think it is, without it being a judgment, it's the system has, we really haven't changed our approach to the crisis in 150 years. It's okay, these are the people who are at most at risk, and these are the signs to look for, and we're going to teach these courses and continue to do the same thing, and we really haven't changed anything. And so what happens is, and you know it because you were a commander, and I get told this all the time from people from E1s to O9s that say, oh man, we got to do another suicide prevention brief. Like this
Yeah,
is going to
brutal.
just suck. Like I mean, like poke me in the eye. I mean,
Hmm.
I like literally. I mean, I was so I was at the 101st, and Major General David Gardner is a phenomenal dude, and his one of his DCGs is a great friend of mine, Brigadier General Travis McIntosh. You would love these guys; they're
Hmm.
awesome. So I was there last month, and they've been there before, and I'm going back again. But so the last day of the training in this most recent cycle was all the company commanders. So I'm standing in the middle, and there's like about 100, and there's a first sergeant to my right. And so I say something like, being a smartass, I said, "Have you been to a suicide prevention brief before?" He's like, I said, "First sergeant." I said, "First sergeant, may I say something?" He said, "Yeah." I said, I swear to you, I swear to God, this is going to be different." Okay. He's like, "Yeah, whatever." So the brief is like 75 minutes. And so he's engaged. I mean, he's listening. He's not texting or doing anything else. And I said, "First sergeant, what'd you think?" He said, "You gave me a lot to think about." Okay. All right, cool. All right. So I think the biggest thing is the army that we love so
Hmm.
much, that right below my family is the army for me, that they've become tone deaf to really anything that's
It's
being
fair.
pushed out. I mean, it is. It just, it's interesting. When I went to DPR, when I went to Pentagon, and I've known General Eifler for like 5 years. So, and I briefed him before when he was the CG at for the 11th Airborne, and but I'd never gone to DPRR and done anything. And so, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going in thinking, oh man, they're going to be like oh, if you say the word preservation, we're going to punch you in the mouth, or
Yeah.
something like that. And they were like, oh no, we love this idea. We agree things need to be different. I'm like, oh
Mhm.
wow. So all this to say, the army certainly has there's some opening. And again, if you look at, and it's not just a cute like, oh yeah, oh, that's kind of cute. You're going to change the wording. No, no, it's not. It's not that. Because again, if you just look at, where is the, do I have it here? I don't think I have it right here. I don't have these definitions memorized, but basically prevention is intentionally stopping something from happening. It's a
Mhm.
transaction. It's a moment in time.
Okay.
It solves a problem. Got it. Preservation is something that, it's not about stopping something from happening as it is supporting something to continue. And if you
Mhm.
think about this, we preserve things that we care deeply about: historical sites, the
Right.
environment, wildlife, works of art. And we don't have any kind of quandary in our minds. We're not resistant to the fact, okay, this is more than just a day. So I think part of it is, okay, suicide prevention. All right, I took the gun away. Well, then what?
Yeah.
What do you do tomorrow? There's nothing about that. Preservation it's a stewardship. It's a totally different mindset. And we talked a lot today about mindset.
Yeah.
And I know if the army will embrace this, that things will be different. It's not going to be perfect. And then and then I can, when I get down even more granular, is to teach what my brother did. So I said, how did you stay connected? Shit, excuse me,
It's
you
all
were
good.
there we go. Thanks, brother. You were a second lieutenant for K Troop at Fort Bliss. They had M113s back then. So,
A
so
little old.
how how did you stay connected? He said, well, David, it was easy. Back in the day, you kept a book on everybody. So I said, well, what's in the book? Because I need to teach this, because this needs to come back out. And so he gave me, it was like 13 different things that you kept a book on. He said, but the key point is you gathered the information over time, and then you just were mindful of it.
Yeah.
You did this. So now if I can go and at the squad or the platoon or even the company level and say, look, guys, do this, use your phone, but do this.
Yeah.
We even, here's something that we did. This goes back to the belief thing, to, okay, you agree with me that belief drives action. It's fact.
Hmm.
So, but you don't know what your soldiers believe. So I got a great buddy, Colonel. This guy will be. He's a Jody Shouts. He
Yeah.
will be a general. Justin Pritchard. He's the brigade commander for the 36th Engineering Brigade in Fort Hood. Amazing guy. Just I love this man. And
He probably knows me.
that, well,
I probably did his travel at one point in his
okay. Well,
career.
I text these guys. I mean, I text them all the
I've done
time.
so much DTS. It's not even funny.
I
All
can't
these
wait.
colonels know me.
I, so, so what we did is we designed a survey that, before I went down and did a week's worth of briefs, it's an anonymous survey. It had 5 questions. First question was, what's your core belief about yourself?
Hmm.
What's your core belief about the Army? What's your core belief about life? And then what's your biggest fear? What's your biggest need? And I tell you
Those
what,
are
but we
great.
got 600 responses. It was amazing. And so then we parsed it out. The only identifying aspect was yeah, we did it at the company level, not platoon. What company are you in? Just so then we could give that information
Right.
to, and then the 65 the religious affairs specialist, um, is like a freaking brainiac.
Yeah.
She took all the data, and so we could look at it ahead of time, and it was amazing. I mean, people wrote like paragraphs to all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
So then we gave it to the different company commanders, and so some people may say, oh well, that's not going to be helpful. Like that, it's not. You don't know what exactly, because there was people who wrote, I'm depressed, I'm worthless.
Hmm.
There were some of those answers in there. Well, now what's important for you as a company commander is, you got, let's say you had 2 of those 2 people are within your
You gotta find
100.
them. Yeah.
Exactly. So very long-winded, but if you realize that connection can be, hey, I thought you might need this card. Every connection creates hope.
Yeah.
Hope is spitting out teeth. waiting for you to give it a better shot. And then the TTPs are the way that you can go. I tell people you can create hope for anybody, anytime, anyplace, anywhere.
Yeah.
And we could talk for hours on the stories that I have that are just so much fun.
Yeah. I, as a former commander, I take pride in that I didn't have anybody take their life. We I had
Congratulations.
one that was
Well
was
done,
thinking
brother.
was thinking about it, and got him help, and he's doing great, and he's actually on my Facebook now and messages me every now and then. It's great, and but well, anybody who's under my command will remember this phrase is that I would, if I ever saw you in the office, 4:15, 4:30, because like I said, the old guard pretty much is done around 4 o'clock on a normal day. Officers kind of stick around for other stuff, but for most Joes, the day's over. And I go to my orderly room, there's two or three guys in there for whatever reason. And I'm like, what are y'all doing here? It was like my phrase to anybody was like, why are you still here? And
Mm,
and they're like, because you're here. I'm like, well, that's the stupidest reason ever to still be at work. like
because the boss is here,
like
right?
you don't
Exactly.
know, do you know what I'm doing? And they're like, no. I'm like, I'm just hanging out here. I don't have to do traffic so I can go to church. That's the only reason I'm here. Like, I'm not working to work. I'm just here because going from the old guard to Vienna at 5 o'clock is a terrible idea. If you ever made that drive, it's awful.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
so
grew up in Silver Spring.
yeah, so I'm like, go home. Like, oh, we're always told don't leave until the commander leaves. I'm like, you'll be here for a long. What if I'm single and don't have any kids? I'll just sleep on my couch. You're screwed. Like you're allowing your time to mythologically be managed by my being. That doesn't make any sense. So even when I was a staff officer or a platoon leader, that was my phrase was like, why are you still here? And because I
Mm,
remember being a Joe and always being like, what are you waiting for? Waiting for the word, the infamous word.
hmm. Yep.
And,
Oh, yeah.
and there's
Right.
like 50 of us in the hallway in the barracks being like, can we take our tops off yet? No. Can we drink? No. Dang it. And like no one was brave enough to go down the stairs and be like, hey, are we done? Like, yeah, I've been there for hours. What? You mean hours? And like it just creates this
Exactly.
mental frustration. And so when I talk to anybody who's still in service, just take my phrase. Like you're in your office on your computer and you're working. I promise you there's 20 guys or gals out there just being like, can we go home? Are we good to go home? Like, am I going to go to
Hmm.
jail if
No,
I go
exactly.
home?
Yeah.
And that doesn't cause suicide, but it for damn sure can probably help prevent it, in the real world prevent, and just acknowledge that people by no action of your own are honestly like hanging on pins and needles for your word. And,
Right.
and that can be simple things like commander saying, hey, why are you still here? Versus way bigger spiritual things of waiting for the actual word, to come in. So, but I think people don't understand how simple it is. It's just to be a person, and make, my favorite thing about the infantry, and I have to say the infantry is different and the airborne's completely different. It's not saying we're better, but we are. Sorry, but it's a unique mindset, and no matter if you're a mechanic or a cook or a welder or whatever it is, or engineer or tankers, everybody has their own niche of there's a personality that goes with them, and tactics and stuff are aside, but there's universally amongst soldiers and Marines and sailors and airmen and stuff is this desire to make fun of each other, and we were very good at it. But you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
your dad had that book about his people, and no, like these 13 major points, and that could be any 13 things, but it's like, hey, do I know your birthday? Do I know your spouse? Do I know your kids? Like, do you feel it's okay to
Exactly.
even bring your kids to work? Because why not? I mean, most days we're not doing anything in the infantry. That's where we're not. If we are, kids shouldn't be there. And but these little things that can go on, and it's like, hey, your wife's pregnant and she's in labor. Why are you here? Go.
Mm,
Like, why do you feel that you need to ask for my go? And when I was you'll probably remember these things. So when I was in command, there was a period of time from the late 2000s to like 2015, whatever, where to go on leave required like 18 pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Mythological policy stuff, but nothing actual regulation. It was like you have to figure out the suicide awareness thing, you have to do this and this map and blah, 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 and make sure you can tie your shoes and it was like,
Hold on.
it was ridiculous. I'm like, this is a right. This isn't a thing. And so I took command. I told everybody, I was like, look, I need two pieces of paper. I need your leave form and I need a pay stub that has the days that you need to match just to show me you have the days. That's all I need. Like, well, you don't need the risk assessment. I'm like, it's called a license. You have a license for a reason, and I don't need to burden you down with finding a computer to do a risk that I know you're going to lie on. You're going to be like, it's like are you going to wear a seatbelt? Yes.
Exactly.
Are you going to sleep for 8 hours before? Of course. Like, are you going to not drink? It's right. Maybe, I mean, like, there's this, you're going to lie. So the result is green and then you're going to go on your trip and not do any of that stuff. Like, so how about this?
Exactly.
How about we'll be adults here. Here's your leave form. Go have fun with your family on the wedding. I was like, if you do anything stupid, I promise you, I will prosecute you. It's that simple because that's what the rules are. We have a agreed set of rules, and this isn't make a big deal about this because I think a lot of commanders are risk aversive, and
Oh, wow.
they're like, oh gosh, if the soldier goes out and drinks and drives and doesn't wear a seatbelt and gets in a wreck, I'm getting in trouble. I'm like, uh, bring it. I will see you in court. It doesn't scare me. Like why am I allowing that person's mental health to be burdened by my fear of taking a risk? And
Mm,
and not going home and there's just a lot of things, particularly in the military. The going home's
yeah.
a big thing. And I hated it. And I was always trying to push like go be with your family, whatever you need to do, and I take, my ex-wife, when I took command, she was 2.5 months pregnant and like took the guide on. And then a week later, she had a miscarriage, and my commander was like, I'm at work. She calls me and says, like, hey, we got a problem, so I'm devastated. It's 11:30, on like a Tuesday. And I go to my commander's office and he's like, you okay? I'm like, no, I said, my wife just had a miscarriage. He's like, go home. I've been in command
Mm.
for a week and a half, you know, and like in any other sense, it's like, why, we'll figure it out when we get later tonight. It's like, go home. And I went home and dealt with it. We did, what you have to do for all that kind of stuff. And he said, do you need any time off? Just take it, and,
Wow.
and so I give him props. J. Todd Burrows, you're out there if you hear this, it was a great moment of character to that he didn't need to do all that. I mean, he did, but it's a human, but whatever. So it's just I think there's
Yeah.
little things that can drive your mental health.
Oh
Um,
my God.
little things.
It's yeah. I mean, the big things are good too, but in all my therapy and medication and things I still do. But brother, I think these small these TTPs that and somebody came up to me not long ago, and it really was one of the best things that someone had ever said to me. In that she said, "This makes it doable."
That's good.
It's doable. Like you take the 2 inch by 4 inch card, that's doable.
Yeah,
You know, I I can yeah. Some of you go up to a cash register and somebody's helping. They have their name. Their name is Travis.
yeah.
Hey, Travis, how are you?
Or every waiter
Or
in the world. Hey, I'm Travis. I'm here to start building day. Remember, they just gave you the name. Say it back. When you ask for a refill, hey Travis, you need a
exactly.
refill. It's simple.
I say use the waiter's name every single time you come back. So I got to tell you just a quick story on that.
Please.
Great buddy Dave. He's a I don't know my Air Force ranks as well. So he's the highest level Air Force enlisted. So is that senior master chief?
I I think so. Well, senior master
I
is the
think he's
Navy.
a
That's
great
that's
guy.
Navy. But yeah, I think it's master
Yeah,
sergeant
but
still. Yeah. Anyways,
that's senior master and great guy. Just like well, he loves this. So we've worked together. He's tasked with the Pennsylvania National Army National Guard. Great guy, Major Ring, awesome XO. So we've done a bunch of stuff together. So Dave loves this name thing. So he left me 6 minute voice text. He said, "Oh my God, I got to tell you the story. So my buddy and I went out. We had this great waitress named Taylor. I did your thing. Every time Taylor came back, I used her name, but my buddy addressed her as waitress. I called her Taylor.
Oh
So he
wow.
said it kind of bothered me a little bit, but I didn't want to make a scene out of it. So the check comes and Taylor says, "Hey, would you guys, are we going to split the bill?" And Dave says, "Yeah, Taylor, that's fine." So the bill comes back and he says, my buddy looked at it. He says, "Hey, how come the appetizer's on my bill and it's not on your bill?"
Touche. Well played. It
He
matters.
said, "I know. Oh my gosh, she's done. My former bride. She waits tables at a high end place outside of Dallas. I don't know the name, but she says, and we communicate all the time. And she says, "Oh yeah, babe. When the people who refer to me as Deanna, they're the ones that get the best service. They
Yeah.
do. It just and it's just the small. It's a small thing. So I get new glasses. This kind of I'm gonna show it on my phone. Because this really I was having a tough day and this it was like wow. Here we go. Okay, so anyway, I go to this optometry place close to us. Travis, it's like 5-star level service. It
Yeah.
was it like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And so, I'm good with the people's names, and I'm like, wow. So then when I finally meet the doctor, Dr. Brooks, I said, ma'am, I just got to tell you, the service that your staff has just been like off the chart. I mean, just kind of went
Hmm.
on and on and on and on. And she was very nice, but just kind of seemed a little not removed, but like
Hmm.
okay, that's good. So nine, it was like 9:30 that night. I get a text. "Hi, David. It's Dr. Brooks. Just saying hi. I want to thank you on behalf of our staff for your heartfelt and kind words during your visit. Thank you for giving me hope and human kindness. Your timing was especially meaningful to me. Enjoy your evening."
Wow. Simplest thing.
Brother, I would have never thought in, of all the people in that office that would be the one person who needed to hear it that day. And she at 9:30 at night, she texted me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It resonated.
yeah, it's
That's the,
incredible.
I think that's the thing people will never understand, but we need to understand the most is that the simplest thing that, man, it's really pretty in here. Whoever picked these colors did a great job. Simplest thing, the simplest little compliment.
You know what? Exactly.
You know,
You know, I'll tell you, and my dad to this day, his weapon of choice, the handwritten note.
yeah,
I mean, and he always taught me, he said, "Well, David, look, culture eats strategy for breakfast."
yeah.
And the TSA? I said, "Yeah." I said, "What do they do?" He said, "Well," I said, "it protects us." He said, "Exactly." So what you want to do when you create a culture that you feel is optimal, then you want to be timely, specific, and authentic
Hmm.
in your acknowledgement and recognitions of the people who make it that way.
Yeah,
And this man is just like
that's awesome.
laser, just
That's great. I think I had a random thing. So my wife goes on Marketplace looking for a mattress box spring for our kid's bed. She meets up with this guy, messages, of course, out there to pick up. 'Cause I have a truck, and so I meet
because you
this
live in
guy.
Texas. Of course you
Right.
of course you
So
have a
I meet this
truck.
guy in a random storage unit, and he's got a whole storage unit full of air compressed mattresses and box springs. I'm like, what the heck? And he's like 26 at that 25, 26. And so, we're both talkers, obviously. He's in the financial realm. And so I think we're both trying to recruit each other as a client. It was really funny. And that we traded cards and I was like, okay, I have the box spring. Here's your money and here's your card. Have a good day. And he emails me the next day and says, "Hey, I was talking to my dad about you. I think it's really fascinating. Would you like to sit down and have coffee?" I'm like, sure. So I go, and I think I'm being recruited to be a financial person with them, but
Right.
and which is fine. I recruit people to be clients for mine too. So I go to coffee and talk about my military career and whatnot. And his dad's just like, "Hey, I don't really want to talk to you about finance. I just want to hear your story. I think it's fascinating." And
Mm.
I was like, "Cool, no big deal." And so we talked and talked, and an hour and a half later, I left, and that was really fun and pleasant. A week later, I get a package in the mail. because my address is on my card, obviously, and it's his book. And he's gone into a certain page. He's highlighted a whole section, said, "This whole chapter, I think, is about people like you." And he had a handwritten card
Mm.
that matched it, you know, and then his son sent me a letter, a card as well, says thank you for the time, and it had like the old wax seal on the triangle
Yep.
press
Yep.
in there.
Yep.
I told my wife,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not the person, I'm not the kind of person that needs this, but it really was cool, you know.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I went back to have lunch with him about a month or two later, and the dad sent an email to his publisher and CC'd me saying, "Hey, you need to get Travis in your office." So he's got a book that needs to be written. And now here we are. I just approved my final manuscript like 2 weeks ago.
Oh
And
my
so it's like this weird thing of like you never know where something as simple as your spouse needing a box spring on Facebook Marketplace leads
gosh.
you a month and a half later to something that for me, I've been trying for 7 years to get a hold of a publisher and to get in the door, you know. And so I went in the door and sat down, and they're like, "Yeah, like we're crying on just this slop of a mess that you've gotten written here because it was awful. It was in a terrible state, you know. But now we got a book that's coming out here into the year, and so it's just it's more than just mental health and like suicide, but like it's literally those connection points and being unafraid to be vulnerable, you know, and be
Yep.
available, and can
Yep.
lead to, you know, some remarkable things in life. And I encourage anybody that hears this, you know, I'll scream from the mountaintops, is like make the attempt. Make the
Yep.
attempt to say hi, make the attempt to ask a question, you know, whatever the time you have, make the attempt. And so that's kind of my summing up thing here. But
No, thank
they,
you, brother. It was
I can't,
amazing.
I can't tell you how thankful I am though for you taking the time to do this. And you know, we could probably sit here and max out the memory on my computer for how big of a file this is going to be. But
Easy.
man, I really appreciate it, and for your efforts as a veteran, as somebody that's been in a lot of a lot of suicide prevention classes. You know, I appreciate what you're doing. There is a difference being made. There's people that are unwilling to make changes at times, and I'm sure it drives you nuts. But
Yes.
you're in the fight, and I know you're in the fight with yourself to make yourself better. I know you're in the fight to help us as those put on a uniform to be better, and I thank you for that. And so
Thank you, brother.
any closing words before we go?
No, brother, well, I love you. This is just it's a gift from God, and anything I can do, please don't. If somebody calls in and wants to talk about,
Did you just freeze? So I think you did. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up. And if you're not a subscriber, by all means, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.